Hello, I'm Nicolette Pomba-Van-Sale, editor of ESI Africa magazine, coming to you from the African Utility Week studio. Today I have with me Nadine Steyn, who is a research analyst for Africa at Frost & Sullivan. Welcome, Nadine.
Hi.
I believe that you've been attending quite a few of the sessions here at African Utility Week, specifically around finance. So in those sessions, what were the challenges that came out from the presenters? What were they talking about?
Okay, well, yes, as you mentioned, I attended the finance workshops, and I was really enthusiastic to see that the business models are changing when it comes to financing projects. We're seeing a lot of interaction with financiers in the project preparation stage of things. So they come and they assist the developer and identify bankable projects and then nurture those through the process to fruition, which is such a necessary concept in this country that we need, and I mean across the continent, because we have a need for power. There is finance available, but unfortunately our projects are not always bankable, and that's where the process falls short. So that kind of support is very positive to see.
So the biggest challenge is bankability.
Yes.
And the presenters were giving solutions around how these projects can become bankable.
Yes, and also mentioning that the developer on the street shouldn't be excluded from this process, and that it was very exciting to see that small-scale energy projects are being encouraged just as enthusiastically as utility-sized ones. Because in a lot of cases the funding required is quite a different process, it's not as risky, and there's a lot of scope for creative thinking and innovative business models. So that was really great to see.
Did it come out that in terms of the smaller the project, the lesser the risk, the more easily a commercial bank would get involved?
Yes, absolutely. There were a few questions to the panel regarding projects below 50 megawatts, so more like a 10 megawatt project, and whether there would be interest from commercial banks and foreign banks to get involved in those projects, and there was very positive feedback to that. So it's very encouraging for independent developers.
Were any case studies mentioned that have already taken place or that are in the process?
Not on a small scale.
And did they mention possibly around microgrids and rural electrification, how we're going to finance those?
Yes, of course. I mean, the question of competing with utility if there's access to the grid is obviously not a feasible conversation. But looking at areas that are not within the radius of a utility grid, further away, we're looking at microgrids as solutions, and then even off-grid solutions, which obviously add costs, because obviously utility can provide power for far less. But when there is no access to power, then a higher cost is possibly more acceptable and will be embraced.
Right. And in the audience, was it a general mix of utilities as well as investors, as well as just companies that are looking to provide solutions?
Absolutely. There were developers, there were bankers, there were utilities. We saw a lot of researchers, people who are keeping their finger on the pulse in terms of sector development, law firms, you name it. There's a lot of traction.
Were there any questions from the audience that really surprised you?
I think that when it comes to the financing options, the questions that were asked in terms of what is bankability, what do these big financial institutions look for, and at the end of the day, it comes down to economics. And if you can provide power at a price that will end up being right, at the end of the day, you will be supported. So that's the best advice that I got from the workshops, is just ensure the bankability and the finance side of the project, and you will be supported.
And lastly, were there any trends that they were focusing on?
Well, as I said, the movement away from just financing large utility scale projects, we're seeing the role of the developer and the financier changing quite considerably. It's becoming more dynamic. It's necessary for the two of them to collaborate in order for projects to be successful. We're seeing the nature of power projects changing. You know, before perhaps it was far more fossil fuel orientated, whereas now financiers are likely to sidestep fossil fuel intensive projects in favor of those which offer greener technologies and processes. So yeah, it's a trend towards green, it's a trend towards sustainability and environmentally friendly operations, and also of course the health and safety of the people of Africa.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Thank you for watching. I'm Nicolette Pomba-van Zyl, editor of ESI Africa, coming to you from the African Utility Week studio.